Welcome to another episode of our unique NUFC podcast. In a week where it's raining goals from a supremely confident Toon Army, we look at the week gone by as Eddie's Mags turn their attention to Southampton at home. It's a big welcome to Black and White with Arab News.
Back to Trippier. Wilson's got in front of Tarkowski, taken it down and helped it forwards to Almiron. And he's moving it over to this near Newcastle side. Target over halfway. Down the wing for Joelinton. 4 in the attack. Joelinton chops inside into the area. Effort from Joelinton, saved by
Yes!
And the rebound stabbed in. And Callum Wilson.
It's a warm welcome back to former Premier League legend Kevin Campbell to help us review the Goodison Park clash last night and also to preview the Saints. Before we say hi to him, though, we welcome our own prolific pen king, sports editor Ali Khaled. AK, let's take it right back to the Spurs game. 5 goals in a devastating 21 minutes. Let's start the week off right.
Yeah, I mean, you must be very happy, Pete, you and all the Newcastle fans. What a week. Listen, Pete, after Villa, you were a little bit worried. You said it's a bit of a wake-up call, and it was. It was a wake-up call. But I know I'm starting to sound like a bit of a broken record, but every challenge, every minor setback that Newcastle have faced this season, you know, they've answered in the best possible way. You know, like the Carabao Cup and the loss to City came back strongly after that. You know, then, you know, the Villa game, again, which few of us have said, like probably the worst performance of the season. You were slightly worried, but I mean, what better way to answer it with the best performance of the season against Tottenham? I think prior to that, we thought the game against Manchester United was probably Newcastle's most complete performance this year. But I think the 6-1 against Tottenham has become the signature performance under Eddie Howe, the signature performance for the new regime. I think it's the day where all the hard work and everything that, you know, they've been working towards sort of came together. And I think it's also the day that the fans really started to believe. I know a lot of people have been cautious, but now they're starting to say, right, you know, Champions League football is, you know, a strong possibility. It's not quite there yet, but of all the teams that are challenging for it, I mean, you know, Newcastle are by far in the healthiest position.
Great stuff and well summed up, Ali. Welcome, Super Kevin Campbell. We're going to get straight into the business. There was a big game on at Goodison Park for both ends of the table. The Toon, got to say, Kev, the Toon weathered what I would call a blue tidal wave of emotion for the first 15, 20 minutes, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And look, Everton, it was such a big game for Everton. They're at home. They wanted to get themselves in front. They approached the game in the right manner. They put Newcastle under a lot of pressure, you know, trapped them in midfield. Newcastle couldn't get it going. But when you're a team like Newcastle going for Champions League, you have to be able to weather the storm. And for all Everton's early dominance, what's the thing? When you're on top, what do you have to do? You have to score. You have to get your noses in front. Everton's biggest problem all season has been scoring goals. They couldn't get it done. And then slowly you saw Newcastle start to get a foothold in the game. And once Newcastle got a foothold in the game, got that break, great play by Joelinton, who was man of the match. And, you know, it was Callum Wilson stuck it away yet again against Everton. The writing was on the wall for Everton. And, you know, it became a tight game, and Calvert-Lewin scored, and it was just offside. It was a whisker offside. But you knew how Everton approached the second half was going to be vital. And to be fair, they approached it in the right way, but Newcastle just had too much quality for them. And sometimes you've got to hold your hands up, Pete. Listen, they're in form. They've got 2 strikers who I think the way Eddie Howe has used the squad has been very good because he keeps the players hungry. 1 minute Isaac's in, and you see Callum Wilson come on, and he doesn't look too happy. Next minute he's starting. Isaac comes on, and Callum Wilson scores a couple. Isaac comes on and as a blinder as well. So I think he's utilised his squad really well. And let's be honest, they blew Everton away. When Everton thought maybe we could get back into it at 3-1, Isaac goes on that Maisie, which was incredible, wasn't it? What a run.
Absolutely brilliant. I've got to say, Kev, as a former striker, is it a sort of a carrot and stick method that Eddie's using? Because you're quite right, because Callum Wilson said on his podcast with Mikel Antonio that he was like, that Spurs game, he said, I was itching. I was on the bench and the goals are flying in here. I'm itching to get on and get amongst it. So do you think that's a sort of mentality that when they get on there, they've got to take that chance?
100%. It is carrot and a stick type, as you said, but everybody's in the right mindset to force Newcastle into that Champions League spot. That is the hunger of the squad. It's not I'm throwing my toys out the pram type of hunger or type of mindset. It's I want to get in amongst it, he's saying. And that's how it should be. It should be I want to get on the pitch. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If I'm starting, I have to perform because I know there's somebody on the sideline who can do the business. So it works both ways, Pete.
Ali, as well, it's someone else it's working for who's in a by his standards, rich vein of goal scoring form. Jacob Murphy looks like he's been playing in that first team for Newcastle for 2 or 3 seasons. He plays like a man possessed, Ali.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're all playing well. Jacob Murphy, in particular, 2 goals against Tottenham, and again against Everton. He's playing so well. So is Willock. Everybody who's getting their chance. I mean, Kevin mentioned it. He's saying they're getting they're waiting, they're hungry for their opportunity. But the really important point is that they are getting those opportunities. It's not like we have mentioned this in the past, probably with Kevin in the last time he was on as well. We were saying that it has been a masterclass by Eddie Howe, how he's used the squad, and I think the players who are being dropped to the bench, or we in the past we'd say dropped to the bench, they know with 5 substitutions they're going to get their chance. They're more likely than not there. They're going to get some piece of the action, and everyone's ready for it. As Kev said, nobody's complaining, nobody's throwing tantrums and all that. They're just waiting their chances, and they all seem to be getting the chances. Even at the back, we mentioned, I know one of your favorites, Matt Targett, finally got a start. So. It seems to me everyone who's being given an opportunity has come in and done a job. No one's really let the team down, and the ones who are being kept on the bench when they are called upon, it just seems to be quite seamless, their introduction. And I think obviously the main ones are Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak. They're just both inspiring each other to keep on scoring.
Yep, take each other to greater heights. Kevin as well. As the Newcastle taking care of business, and I love that because in all the years I've known you, there's 2 phrases that stand out for me as Super Kevin Campbell: is take care of business and find a way. Yeah. Whilst the 2 not doing that, they're getting a little bit of help as well with the results, and those teams around them are having to play each other, which is fantastic for us. And you look at Tottenham, who needed a response after that Newcastle game, and the perfect result for us Toon fans was that draw, wasn't it?
It was a draw. I mean, at 2-0, I thought, wow, Manchester United are going to take this. Spurs are going to be in the doldrums. But, Spurs, after what you guys done to them, Pete, I tell you what, they had to show some fight, and they fought back to 2-2. Perfect result for you guys, getting 3 points. So you guys are in the driving seat for, your Champions League spot. We know there's a lot of games to come, and what is it, a 5-game season now? Yeah. So you're going to fancy yourselves, Newcastle, aren't you? You're going to fancy yourselves. But one thing we do know about this game of football, it can trip you up if you don't stick to your principles. So Eddie Howe, I'm sure, is going to keep utilising that squad. He's going to keep the players focused. And you know what? Champions League football for Newcastle next season. What a massive, massive achievement. And I know it's not a trophy, Pete. Just like Arsenal. Arsenal getting back into Champions League football is not a trophy. But it's a great achievement from a new group. Arsenal's group's new. Newcastle's group is young and new. So great achievement by Eddie Howe and the football club.
Indeed. Ali, looking at the other top 4 contenders, because we always like to have a roundup on this show of what's going on in and around us. An ideal week, really, if you look at it. Let's paint the scores on the doors. Brighton and Spurs and Man United all dropping points. Although Aston Villa march on, and they sort of, they're in the ascendancy as well. And then we've got games this weekend where the teams are playing each other. So It is starting to come to what we call the business end, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that in favor of Newcastle is that the games are running out. I mean, Kev said it's a 5-game season now. The games are running out. I mean, you look at Liverpool are coming into a bit of form, but too little, too late. Way too little, too late, because they're about if Newcastle win the game in hand, they're like 12 points, and Manchester United 9 points. So you're counting on teams to lose 3 games, which is just not going to happen. And more importantly, you're counting on yourself to win all 5 or 6 games left. Again, Liverpool haven't shown. Neither Liverpool or Tottenham have shown any sort of consistency to win 6 games in a row. I know Liverpool are on a decent run at the moment, but it's come too late. Tottenham, who were a bit closer and could have helped themselves out, had they beaten Manchester United yesterday, very inconsistent again. So you're requiring Newcastle to drop a lot of points, and for the other teams to actually win. And there's only 5. You've run out of games. If there was 10 games left, I would, possibly fancy Liverpool to put in a run, because they've done it quite a few times, even when they've dropped up. But with 5 or 6 games left, I think it's almost a done deal now. I would say I really can't see anyone displacing Manchester United and Newcastle in the top 4.
See how the weekend goes. Leave the rest needing snookers, perhaps. Yeah. Kev, let's look at this Sunday's opponents and look at the other end of the table as well, because for Southampton. And you were with Franny Benali, our good friend, just recently. I spoke with Jim Magilton yesterday. This is last chance saloon for Saints, if not too late, because you talk about your Leeds, Everton's, Leicester's, and Forests, but Southampton are still stuck, and they badly need a result.
Yeah, they desperately need a result. Pete, let me tell you something. It might be one of the very few times, apart from the bigger teams, where an opposition team comes and tries to press you at home.
Yeah.
And that's what Newcastle love. Come and press us so we can play through you, because Newcastle are very good on the counter and very good at beating the press, because the way they do it, they push it through you, and they're a very good running team. Southampton have to go there with a positive mindset. They need the 3 points, Pete. A point's no good for them.
No.
But a point's no good for Newcastle, and a point's no good for Southampton. So both teams are going to have to go for it. Listen.
0-0 on Sunday then.
Well, listen, no, I don't. I think there's going to be goals, because I think the way Newcastle are playing right now, they're very difficult to handle on the attack. And Southampton do concede goals.
Mm.
So, again, Southampton have to come to St. James's Park with a mindset of attack, and it's going to suit Newcastle down to the ground. I can't see anything other than a Newcastle win, Pete, but we know what this league can do.
Pete, if I might jump in on that point, I agree 100%. I think Newcastle will win, probably comfortably as well. And the thing is, Kev, we might have discussed this the last time you were on. We were saying how close it is at the bottom. So many teams close to each other. We said it's probably going to go to the last day of the season for all 3 spots. But I think this is the first time in this season, and I might be wrong here, but it must be close. It's the first time in the season that the team at the bottom, which is Southampton, even if they win, they don't rise above the table. Until recently, until like a few days ago, until last week, every team that was even in 20th position, one win took them up to 18th, or outside the top, and they were that close. There's starting to be that little gap now. It's a 4-point gap. I can't see Southampton winning at Newcastle, and if Newcastle, and should they not get nothing out of that
game,
they
get cut adrift, don't they?
They get cut adrift.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for them, but it's kind of been coming. I worry for Everton as well. I mean, in that, under Sean Dyche, they have been fighting. They've scrapped a couple of points. They were down to 10 men last week, and in isolation, you think that's a good result. Down to 10 men, you get a good point. 1 point, every couple of games is no good at this point. You need a couple of wins, to take you up. And again, same thing that we said about the top of the table applies to the bottom of the table. You're running out of games. Again, you're thinking, well, if we win 3 out of 5 and all that, well, there's a reason why you're at the bottom. Is because you haven't won 3 games in a row all season.
Ali, you're right. And you know what? This might come down to Monday's game at Leicester.
Oh, yeah.
Everton. Leicester, Everton. Leicester are in hot water. Everton are in hot water. Leicester want to pull away. Everton need to get out of that bottom three. So it's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah.
And you throw Leeds into that mix, who are having an absolutely torrid spell at the moment. And I looked at Everton last night, and I think that I'm a huge fan of Alex Iwobi, and I just didn't think he was at his best. I thought he's always available, Kev. He's got bags of energy. But he can see a pass. He's got a turn of pace. And I thought he was possibly at 85, 90% last night. And Everton suffered for that because of the fact that they don't have 3 or 4 other players of that ilk who can carry.
And that's, listen, Pete, it is what it is at the end of the day. What Everton have to do, Everton's away form is terrible, but they have to find a way. We saw it last season. We saw it the season before. So that's why I think Everton are just going to stay up on the last day. I think they play Bournemouth at home, Pete, last day of the season, Ali. And if Everton could get it to the last game, they've done really well. I expect them to get it to the last game. And then it's a lottery after that, isn't it? You just have to try and win your home game.
Fingernail time. AK taking stock here. Newcastle then have got a winnable game at home this weekend. And another set of perfectly timed fixtures for the Gallagher faithful, because rivals face each other again. Man United facing off against Villa, and of course Liverpool play Spurs. So again, the fixture goddess has been kind to the tune.
Yes, I think Liverpool and Tottenham will knock each other out. I fancy Liverpool to win, but either way, like I think it's come. The run of form has come a little bit late for Liverpool. A loss for Tottenham or a draw really puts them out of, I think puts them out of the picture. They're running out of games, and with the best will in the world, Villa, and is it Villa Brighton? Did you say the other match? Yeah,
I think I've got. Yep.
Yep, Villa Brighton, absolutely brilliant. Both teams have been this season, like a breath of fresh air, but with the best will in the world, I still can't see either of them, challenging Manchester United and Newcastle in the top 4. I feel like the top 4 is kind of settled. We'd love a bit of excitement. Certainly, I'd love for my Liverpool to make a late run and all that. But I just keep going back to the fact that they've run out of games.
Absolutely. Kev, while it's still one game at a time for Eddie, and you on your media duties must have heard that, whether you're on BBC, TalkSport or Sky, Eddie Howe, he basically just presses play and rewind, doesn't he? There's no mention of the CL word. But the powers that be, I wanted your take on it. Your Dan Ashworths, your Darren Eales, that are behind the scenes at Newcastle, they'll be well working on a plan of attack for what's required on the pitch next season, won't they?
Yeah, Pete, there'd be 2 plans. That's the way these people work. You'd have to have 2 plans. One plan is for Champions League football. The other plan is, if you're in Europe or not, how you recruit. Because we all know the type of recruitment you need for the Champions League is different to when you're in the Europa. A lot of teams suffer because they cannot attract the better players to your football club without Champions League football. Now, I believe Newcastle are going to make it to the Champions League. I believe all of a sudden, those deep pockets that Newcastle have, Pete. Yeah. I think it's time for Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth and the people upstairs to dig deep in there now, because, Pete, let's be honest, Newcastle are ahead of schedule. They're ahead of the schedule. If they've got Champions League football now, listen, do not rest on your laurels. Go and get certain players and go for it. Because you know what, Pete? It's hard to make it to the Champions League. As we know, you look at Liverpool outside, Chelsea outside. Certain teams who you think would have been challenging are not. So when you're there, you've got to strengthen in the right way.
Absolutely, Kev. If I just add to that, I think it's such a good point about the 2 different plans that they will have. But one thing, we talk about like qualifying to the Champions League, we talk about like strengthening for the Champions League, but the point about them being ahead of schedule, having had the season that they had and gone into the Champions League, sure, they're going to strengthen for the Champions League. But very importantly, we don't really talk about this much. there will be expectation next season for them to challenge for the title. I mean, we keep talking about the Champions League, but they're going to be, if you finish the season in third, then the title is on the line. Regardless of what you're going to do in the Champions League, you're going to strengthen for that. You're going to be thinking, you can't just, like say, right, we've made it, we'll go for top 4 again. Next season will be, as you say, if they dig deep and sign a couple of top players, like a striker, a midfielder, and a defender, then the title, would be a title challenge will be expected.
Ali, let me just add to what you say. It has to be the plan, because if you could do it in 3 years, what maybe the plan was in 5 years, do it. Yeah. Newcastle head of schedule, get deep in those pockets and bring in the quality players that you need. You want a good Champions League campaign and you want a really good challenge in the Premier League. That's what you're going to want. Yeah, you could go in the cups, but you've got the squad then. You've got the depth of squad where everybody is in the same focus mindset, that even when you change it, the team is still functioning at a high level. That's the key.
Yeah.
That is the key.
And the trajectory is so, as you say, ahead of schedule, but it's an obvious one. I think maybe, Arsenal, another one of your former, who have been absolutely brilliant this year, absolutely brilliant. But possibly the title challenge came a bit out of nowhere. Maybe they were thinking, right, we'll try and
Champions League football.
And they've gone all almost missed out what Newcastle have done this season. They went from outside to challenging, and possibly not strengthening. The point you made. You plan for a certain level of performance for season, and possibly Arsenal not strengthening in January. I'm not sure if it's hurt them. You probably know a little bit more about that than I do. I think Arsenal have been brilliant. I don't think they've bottled it, as a lot of people are saying. I think Arsenal, they've just, had a dip that was always going to come. And I've said it all along, and I'm sure a lot of people have said it all along. City are just relentless. Liverpool have faced this every year. You put on a run of 9 or 10 games win, they'll put on 14 games, winning streak and all that. And this was always going to come from City. I think Arsenal have done incredibly well. I think it's very harsh for people who say it'll be a terrible season. I think the disappointment will be terrible. I get that. But what they've done is great.
Ali, and I look at the comparison between Arsenal, Ali and Pete, and Newcastle right now, because Ali's right. That kind of gap year, what Newcastle have done to make it in, Arsenal have bypassed that. You're right, Ali, for a challenge. But here's the problem, and this is why this summer for both of our clubs are going to be so important. Liverpool have had it year in, year out. If you don't qualify for the Champions League, the level of player you can bring in is not of the standard that is going to be able to challenge Manchester City. They've had year after year after year of being there, seeing it, doing it, bringing in this player. This don't work. They can mix and match. Liverpool have done it. Arsenal, Newcastle haven't had that luxury. Now
they can't.
Now in the summer, that's why it's going to be so important. Both clubs, Newcastle got the deepest pockets in the league. They're going to go in. But Arsenal have proven, actually, we can sustain it until 6 games. We need a deeper squad. We need a better squad, a better equipped squad. And the only way you're going to do that is by digging in your pockets and getting those players in to entice them to Champions League football.
Arsenal's first 11 has been superb, and until recently, he had the luxury of picking, the same players, and they were absolutely superb. But then Saliba gets injured, and it shows. Newcastle again slightly ahead of schedule in that they've been strengthening in every transfer window over the last year and a half, or 2 years, year and a half. So I think they've had that luxury, maybe that margin to actually plan a little bit more, while Arsenal's improvement was so massive. Obviously so was Newcastle's, but Arsenal, as you say, we went from outside the top 4 to challenging, and the pressure of being at the top for so long and having City chase you, it must be huge, and absolute total respect for Arsenal. I think they played brilliant football. I'm not one of those people who thinks that the nerves got to them or they've bottled it. I just think the circumstances they're up against the best team in the world, probably the best club side.
Well, they're up against the best squad in the Premier League, that's for sure, and the current champions. And as you know, if you're going to win the title, you have to take it off of Man City. Liverpool done that once. Liverpool hit some heights that many teams will never hit, and still didn't win. So this team are an incredible team. They're an incredible club with a squad that is everybody else is envious of. But that's the level. So Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Chelsea, everybody's got to rejig their mindset and get cracking in the window in the summer.
I've got to remain with Eddie Howe's vision here. I can't look more than one game ahead at a time, even though, Kev, on the horizon is a huge game between our two clubs of the Toon and Arsenal. But again, that's for another day. We won't look at that. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Kev, for a score, the Super Kevin Campbell prediction for Newcastle at home to the Saints.
I'm going to go 4-1 to Newcastle. I think Newcastle's going to win the game. I know you can get tripped up, but Newcastle are not going to let it slip at home. 4-1.
Brilliant. As always, to see Super Kevin Campbell. Last word on the podcast belongs to our Arab News sport editor, Ali Khaled. So, Ali, how do you see Sunday panning out? Is it a case of the Mags go marching on and the Saints go marching out? And a prediction from you?
Yeah, no, I can't see anything but a Newcastle win 4-1. I think that's what Newcastle won at Southampton, what game that I was at, remember? That was a very enjoyable day out in Southampton, and Newcastle won 4-1. I think it'll be something similar as well. I think Kevin's got it. I'll go for 3-0. I'll go for 3-0 for
We'd like a clean sheet, because the only tiny blemish, and it is something that Rock of a back four have it's 12 games since they had a shutout. And
doesn't matter when you're scoring. Doesn't matter when you're scoring 6 and 4. When you're scoring 6 and 4,
he must have that big picture of Kevin Keegan up in the changing room. If they score 1, we'll score 4. Absolutely brilliant. Look forward to it. And again, as always, thanks to Super Kevin Campbell for guesting on another episode of Black and White with Arab News. How are the lads?